Welcome back to our channel, where we bring you updates and untold stories about Catherine, Princess of Wales, and her royal family. Today, we bring you some heart-wrenching news. William in tears as princess and announces King Charles's last wish. Prince William, struggling to maintain his composure, could not contain his emotions when Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, delivered the devastating news of King Charles's last wish for Princess Catherine. The announcement sent ripples of grief through the room, bringing even the ever-composed Queen Camilla to tears. This deeply emotional moment came after an insider source revealed the grim health update regarding King Charles's deteriorating condition. The legendary halls of Balmoral Castle, known for housing moments of both grandeur and sorrow, bore witness to a day that would mark a pivotal moment in royal history. Above, the sky, burdened with dark storm clouds, mirrored the tension and sadness felt within the royal family. News of the king's severe health crisis began to circulate within the palace, enveloping all with an unmistakable air of anxiety and grief. Once a formidable figure of authority, King Charles now appeared frail, a shadow of his former self, ravaged by an aggressive form of cancer and undergoing harsh treatments that had taken their toll. In the face of this undeniable crisis, Princess Anne, the family's steadfast and resolute figure, was entrusted with delivering a message that would forever alter the future of the monarchy. The significance of her words was not lost on anyone. They carried the weight of both royal history and an uncertain future. For months, rumors had been swirling within the secluded chambers of Buckingham Palace and the private quarters of Balmoral. These whispers now became an undeniable reality as reports confirmed that the king's condition was far worse than had been previously acknowledged. The emergency hospitalization following complications from his cancer treatments confirmed what many had feared: the monarch was in the final stages of his life. A royal assistant, speaking under tight confidentiality, remarked solemnly, "Each hour now seems like a borrowed moment. The king is not merely contending with illness, he is fighting for his very life." This somber realization cast a heavy shadow over the royal household, and as the day progressed, the inevitable was made apparent. Princess Anne, designated with the grave task of communicating the king's final request, took to the drawing room, where a gathering of family members, advisors, and confidants awaited her words. The tension in the room was palpable, filled with expectation and sorrow. Anne, usually unshakable in her duties, was visibly affected as she prepared to speak. It was in that moment that she broke the silence, her voice quivering slightly with emotion as she announced, "It is with profound sorrow that I must communicate His Majesty's last desire." The weight of the moment hung in the air, heavy and oppressive. Pausing to steady herself, and continued, "Given his grave condition and in an effort to secure the future of our institution, King Charles has expressed his wish for Princess Catherine to be crowned not just as Queen Consort alongside Prince William, but as Queen Regnant in her own right." The room fell into an almost complete silence. The announcement was not just a deviation from centuries of royal precedent, it was a radical, unprecedented change in the very structure of the British monarchy. Princess Anne's voice trembled as she spoke of the king's vision for the future. His desire was not only to ensure the monarchy's survival but to breathe new life into it, to reimagine it for a modern age. The recognition of Princess Catherine, not merely as consort but as sovereign in her own right, would undeniably shift the monarchy's identity and future. For those present, it was clear that this was a request born of both necessity and belief in Princess Catherine's ability to lead. Princess Anne, ever loyal to her father and her family, confided in a close confidant, expressing how difficult the announcement had been for her. Fulfilling his last request, and said softly, felt like watching the very pillars of our family and legacy crumble. "We have always upheld the principle that the crown must evolve, but seeing its transformation at the twilight of a king's life is a sorrow I am struggling to bear." Meanwhile, Queen Camilla, who had worked tirelessly to establish herself as the consort of the king and a steady force within the monarchy, was deeply affected by the king's last wish. In a rare moment of vulnerability, witnesses noted that Camilla's usually composed demeanor seemed to falter as Anne's words resonated throughout the room. Her face, one palace insider remarked, lost all color in an instant. For Camilla, this proclamation was not just a constitutional upheaval, it was a deeply personal blow. Throughout her years as the king's partner, Camilla had struggled to transform her image from the other woman to the revered queen consort. The king's final decision, however, seemed to undercut much of her hard-earned position. In a private conversation, Camilla was overheard admitting, "I have dedicated my life to this family, to this crown. I fear that reducing my role in this institution may be a wound that I will never fully heal." The royal family's reaction to the news was one of mixed emotions: grief, disbelief, and an overwhelming sense of loss. Anne, despite her own grief, had always understood the importance of the crown, but the weight of her father's wish was undeniable. She knew that this decision would forever alter the trajectory of the royal family, shifting the balance of power in ways never seen before. As the hours passed within the sacred halls of Balmoral, the royal family, along with their closest advisors, held intense discussions behind closed doors. The implications of the king's final wish were vast, reaching beyond the family to touch the very foundations of the British monarchy. The debate now centered on how to implement such a monumental change, with Princess Anne at the center of the negotiations. As she spoke to her trusted advisors, she said, "We must respect his wishes, but we must also ensure that the integrity of the monarchy is preserved." Meanwhile, Camilla withdrew to her private quarters, seeking solace in her own thoughts. As she reflected on the future, she penned heartfelt letters, seeking to understand her place in this rapidly changing royal landscape. "I write not to alter the future," she wrote, "but to come to terms with it. I must find the strength to face each day as the core of my identity changes before me." Outside Balmoral, the British public began to learn of King Charles's condition and his final request. News outlets across the nation debated the ramifications of the king's decision. For many, the prospect of a modernized monarchy, led by a queen regnant in her own right, was seen as a hopeful sign for the future. Others, however, expressed concerns about the potential risks of disrupting long-held traditions. As the royal family faced the difficult task of reconciling the king's wishes with the practical and constitutional realities of their institution, Princess Anne found herself torn between preserving the monarchy's storied history and embracing the need for progress. "We must honor our past while forging a future that meets the demands of the present," she stated solemnly during one of her many strategy meetings. Camilla, too, faced a new chapter in her life. Despite the emotional toll, she resolved to continue her service to the crown, though her role had been irrevocably altered. "I will continue to serve, even if my responsibilities change," she said quietly, acknowledging the transformation of the monarchy as an unavoidable reality. As dawn broke over the Scottish Highlands, a new day dawned for the monarchy, one filled with uncertainty, reflection, and a determined resolve to navigate the path ahead. Princess Anne's responsibility, now more significant than ever, was to guide the royal family through this period of profound change. In the days that followed, she would be tasked with the enormous challenge of negotiating the future of the crown, balancing tradition and progress, duty and personal sacrifice. In the aftermath of King Charles's final wish, the monarchy found itself at a crossroads, with the weight of history pressing heavily on each decision. The legacy of King Charles, his hopes for the future, and the emotional toll on those closest to him would leave an indelible mark on the British royal family. But despite the sorrow, there was a quiet sense of optimism, a belief that, in the end, the monarchy would endure, evolve, and continue to serve as a beacon for the nation.